Hey guys, Teeple here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Tier 6 American Premium Cruiser, the Boise. Now I have Norm Scott here, this is my build on the screen. That's set up primarily for the heavy cruisers of the American line. I think eventually we're going to get a full branch, Tiers 5, 6, and 7 would be my guess of American Light Cruisers. So this is going to be a situation where having both Kincaid and Norm Scott, or even the Einstein guy from the Halloween event. You can have one set up for the heavy cruisers, one for the light cruisers. I think that's what I'll end up doing at some point, because the Madden on this ship, for instance, it doesn't hurt it, but turret traverse is already pretty good, so keep that in mind if you're looking at that build that's not really set up for this ship in particular. Now we're going to be talking a lot about map positioning during this match. I'm gonna try and do some cruiser-centric content since I know a lot of people are having trouble with cruisers, especially at higher tiers, and I want to do what little impact I have on the players that play the game. I want to be able to help people improve their cruiser play so that high tier play improves in general, because a lot of people aren't playing cruisers, and that's kind of hurting the ecosystem out there, as you're not having the natural checks to destroyers that the game kind of needs to function properly. So when we're talking about positioning, a lot of it is to do with islands and stuff. So when you're trying to play islands, you can see the one in front of me on the right hand side of the screen. There's two ridges on the sides that are low, and then you have the high mass in the middle. And here we switch to the destroyer again. That's kind of our primary responsibility, so we're going to take some shots. But getting back to these islands, you can see them a lot on this map, like the one in the background right there. High central and then kind of tapered down on the sides. And those are the types of terrain features that you want to start recognizing and identifying as cruiser players. Because you can see right now I'm undetected and I'm taking shots. Every time in this game you can take a shot and remain undetected. I consider that a free shot in that you're extremely unlikely to take return fire. And any time you can damage someone without taking damage in return, that's a free exchange on your behalf, and it's very, very beneficial. So again, what I'm going to be doing frequently throughout this game, we're trying to keep these islands in between the ship and I, so he can't see my ship directly. Line of sight works how it's basically the center of each ship. If the centers of each ship can have a unobstructed view right at each other, and then they're within the tracking distance of, or the concealment distance of each other's ships, then they can see each other. That's what's happening. So, you want to be looking for those islands that are low enough that you can shoot over, but high enough that are going to block the ships from seeing your ship. Now, we are spotted currently by a plane. There's not a lot you can really do about it. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the game. But primarily, when you're trying to find these juicy positions, that's what you're going to be looking for. Now, those arise as the game unfolds for cruisers. You want to play fairly conservative in the beginning of the games for cruisers. If you can deal damage, fine, but you don't want to be too aggressive moving forward, because the enemy is going to focus on you. You're obviously a weaker armored target. You're a lot easier to sink. Battleships can one-shot you with a devastating strike, which is, it seems very easy to blame the game and say cruisers are underpowered, but what's happening is you're just putting yourself in a position that you are the most desirable target. So try and focus on just staying alive as the battle begins to unfold, and then as there's less and less ships on the board, that's when you can really look for those island opportunities, get into positions where you can just bomb on someone undetected and really turn the tide of the game in your favor. Now, the Boise is a light cruiser like the Atlanta players that really enjoy that ship should have a good time with this one as well. Fairly similar. This one, on paper, it says it's more heavily armored. What that actually means, we don't know until we have an armor view. But the ship, as you saw earlier, you can take some damage, especially if you're getting hit in the sides. You can angle somewhat against cruisers. I think the armor on the sides is well enough to do that successfully. Battleships are going to be able to overmatch your armor, though, it seems like, from pretty much any angle, so you're not going to want to be taking a lot of shots from battleships if possible. You'll notice there in the consumables you do have 2 heals. You can get that up to 3 if you have the legendary skill on the commanders that allow for an extra, set of consumables. So that is very valuable, and that does help you kind of maintain your longevity of this match here. Now this shot, I'm a little aggressive by shooting there. You can see I was undetected, and what I was trying to do is, again, use that island by him, the one that you can see on the foreground of that screen there. If I can get that in between me and him, I can take shots at him, but since I am the ship spotting him, I think I decided to shoot once or twice, and then as I get into cover here, I should drop spot and go undetected. But he changes course, he goes forward, so I'm going to get permanent spotted, at least for the 20 seconds after I fire my guns. We do have another ship, I think it's Colorado to the north, which is hiding behind an island, bombing shots. Both of those salvos from the King George and that other battleship could have very easily one-shot the ship, so kind of a risky play there. But getting back into the positioning now, we still, I think they have that cruiser on the southwest, which was our strong side, their weak side, at least the map setup. Didn't end up playing out that way by the way our ships reacted. But rather than chasing that York around, which is a good play for him, a bad play for us, he's kiting away. He can draw us away from the battle. That's why I decided to turn back in and support these guys over here. You can see most of their team is heavily concentrated on the north and the northeast side. So now I'm kind of positioning myself in these islands. Planes are still causing problems, but I'm essentially trying to get into a position where I can deal damage to these ships, but they can't return it to me. Again, being plane spotted, major problem, and we are taking shots that could potentially kill us. So the ship, it's a very strong ship in terms of damage per minute, but people that are having trouble getting smoked in cruisers right now because of their positioning is too aggressive, or their angling is inadequate, or whatever the issues, are going to have a hard time. This is not a very survivable cruiser, you know, even compared to the other ones. But I think if for good cruiser players, this is a very strong ship. I haven't played enough. I've played at 8 to 10 games, somewhere in that range. This is an early impressions video. But I think it has the potential, once you get really good at light cruisers, to be extremely strong. I don't want to throw out OP again because I don't have enough experience with it yet, but good cruiser players can do very well in this. So now getting back into the position here, we do have the Colorado sighted, and I'm again trying to slow down, use these islands. Again, I'm looking for that lower dip on the left-hand side of the island that's by him. I want him on the far side of that, and that island in between us, and then I can just bomb shots into him in between. So we stop, now we begin to back up, and if you keep an eye on my speed, you know, through some of these exchanges, we're just going to keep backing up and going forward and backing up. And that's just me maintaining my position, where again, you can see on the screen, we're not detected here. Someone on my team is spotting this ship, so I can just shoot at him as long as I'm undetected without any fear. Now I'm detected here, looking on the map, what is that? It's one of those unspotted ships to the northeast. You can see now they're popping into range. But you got to keep an eye. Those grayed out ships, you don't know where they are. You got to assume they're kind of moving towards you. So good cruiser play. Part of the positioning is map awareness. Both keeping an eye on where your blue concealment ring is, your max firing ring. Those are very important for when you're going to be detected and so on and so forth. But you also need to be keeping an eye on threats to your ship, especially towards your broadside. And, you know, if you're not checking the map regularly, you're going to start firing shots, and then you're going to get detected by someone that you weren't expecting to be there. Because the guy that I'm focusing on here, again, you can see what I'm doing. I'm keeping that little ridge between me and him, and he can't spot me ever, as long as I'm not overshooting that or whatever. But the guys to my right, to the northeast of the map, those are the ones I need to keep an eye on here, because as soon as I get spotted, this pisses people off if you just keep bombing shots at them for a long time. As soon as I'm spotted, this guy is probably going to turn my way and is trying to delete me right out of the game. So you gotta keep an eye on the map. You gotta keep an eye on who's spotting you, who could potentially spot you. And if you are in a position where if you do get spotted, you're going to be in trouble, don't shoot that shot. Just reposition. I have this spec'd out with Concealment mod. I do have Makawa on this build, and I have pretty good concealment. I think it's right around 10 kilometers on this thing, which is good for a tier 6 cruiser. But, you know, what that means is that gives you an extra buffer for when you're not shooting to remain undetected. So don't always feel the need to be shooting. Yes, as a general philosophy, you want to be shooting on reload. You want to be doing as much damage throughout the game as possible, but not to the detriment of your own health necessarily. You want to be positioned effectively so you can constantly deal as much damage as possible while taking as little damage as possible in return. So by preserving your health, I'm not meaning to go hug the side of the map and be the last guy alive on your team every game, because you're completely worthless to your team doing that. But if you're in position to be dealing damage, again, I'm unspotted here. I'm juggling a couple different ships that could see me, but it's just keeping an eye on the map, positioning, and by doing so, we're able to consistently deal damage and stay alive in a pretty brittle ship. So that's kind of the key to positioning that you want to work on. Part of that, you know, again, there's a map awareness component. There's just understanding the terrain component, looking for these islands and identifying what you can use to your advantage. And again, just kind of a pace of game component where you're figuring out at what point in the map or at what point in the match do I have opportunities to get into these positions. And that's generally not going to be early on when everything's really spread out and people can sight you from a lot of different angles. So using this kind of positioning where you're taking a lot of free shots and not taking a lot of damage in return, that's extremely frustrating for the enemy team. It kind of prevents them from pushing in because they're in their universe, the screen's constantly, there's a lot of noise going off. It's kind of a stressful situation. Even though you might not be racking up huge damage with every salvo, because these are lower caliber guns than the 203s you'll find on the heavy cruisers, but you'll still be getting decent damage. They're bigger guns than the Atlanta. You're going to be getting fire chances, but you're going to be just causing a lot of stress for them. It's going to stop them from pushing forward too aggressively. It's, you know, it just frustrates them. I got this guy that sent me a message a couple months ago that said, you know, screw off, you can't be noob or something, because I was doing this to him, and I responded, you know, letting him know what I thought about that. And then it was funny, he sent me another message like a month later. It said he reported me for setting him on fire for too many times in a row or something, I don't know, apparently. But these are the kind of players out there that are just going to have a conniption fit if you're doing this to them successfully, because there's nothing they can really do to counter it. So cruiser play, when you're really in the zone with the positioning, it is really fun, and it is kind of devilish in the frustration you know you're causing your opponents there. Now here, as we whittle this guy down, we've been noting a couple times that since we've been positioning ourselves well throughout this match, primarily what's spotting us are planes, and there's not much you can really do about the planes, but you can recognize opportunities to affect them, and cruisers in general usually have pretty good anti-air weaponry on them. So once I get in a position where I can't see that guy anymore, so I can't put fire on him, the rest of this flank is kind of collapsed, so it's just me kind of holding down this side. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to initially be heading towards the right hand side of this big island to what's in front of my ship here. You'll see this. But once we get spotted by the plane, I'm going to recognize where it is. I should note another thing. The plane is too close for the battleship to be that plane. You can read the enemy, you can read the map and figure out where that ship is. So it's that unspotted cruiser that was the last spot of the north. That's his plane, so I can tell he's right on the other side of that island. But I'm pushing forward, trying to kill the plane. Now I do shoot it down, and as soon as I do, I stop and I'm going to turn to the left. And this is kind of throwing them off, because the battleship and the cruiser over here, when I was spotted, they saw me on their screen sailing to my right, you know, the right-hand side of that island. They see me on the map now. I'm straight out on their map, pointing in that direction. So 95% of the time, players are going to keep going that same direction. So I shoot the plane down, I turn around. Now this New Orleans, which we correctly assumed was close, he's right on the other side of this island, he pops the sonar, so my cover is kind of blown. But he was trying to sneak up around, or I guess maybe that's where he was heading anyways. But I don't know what he's thinking. But he happened to be here. And because we kind of turned around anyways, we're angled to deal well with this guy. Now we load up the AP. If he's a good player, he's either going to angle very sharply away right now. That would probably be his best play. His second best play is to angle sharply towards me. The worst play he can make is what he does here, which is continue sailing broadside. And we're able to just plug him there. And because he's stuck now, I can just turn basically fully vertical to him and bounce anything that comes our way, hit him with some more citadels, and take him out of the match. So that's an early look at the Boise. I think it's an extremely strong ship for good cruiser players. I think bad cruiser players are going to have a bad time in it. But I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. Questions, comments, leave below. Love to hear from you guys, and we'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.